the right field somewhere there.
Something's ill.
I want insurance.
We'll keep going back here in open session.
We have less than 4. We're good.
We're good. All right. Olivia, I don't believe we have anyone signed up to speak for item 6.
No.
Okay. That'll bring us to 7, Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just hit a few highlights in the written materials and questions that you have. Be happy to try to answer them. But, on page 26, there's the July production data daily system load graph at the bottom of the page there. You'll see that our peak load occurred on July 19th of 567. And so far in August, we've exceeded 600 on a couple of days. So load is definitely higher in August. And with the weather cooling off this week, we may have seen our highs for the year. On page 27.
Mr. Collins, interrupt you real quick. With the iPads and everything, do you guys have any questions at all? We've got Brandon Miller back here with IT, the white shirt, and since he's new, everything meant to say that before we started there, so I apologize, but raise your hand and Mr. Miller will come over and we'll show you how you mess it up.
Just FYI, if you just rotate them, you can see the clock. There's a swivel back there, so all you got to do is turn it.
And there are links for every item, so you don't have to scroll through every one on the front. You just hit back to agenda and you just click on the item that we're discussing.
But you can't see what the item, you can't see on the side what it is.
Sorry.
Mr. Collins, sorry for interrupting.
Talking about the page.
Right.
Yeah.
I think what he's misunderstanding is the links.
On page 27, I normally don't talk about the rate comparison graph, but there was a good downtrend on our rates as our new summer rates went into effect and the lower fuel cost, and so we are towards the lower tier of the rate in the rate comparison this month. So that's a good thing to see.
We're below the average.
And that'll come down again August 1st.
Yep. Okay, on the next page, 28, I wanted to give kudos to Ms. Henry. We did have an uptick in Project Helping Hand this month.
That must be honest.
So hopefully that trend will continue. And then mention that some of the notes at the bottom of the page with regards to our call center, we did have a heavy volume of calls this month. 28,000 calls into the call center, up 30% from the prior month. A lot of that's probably, as we get into the summer months and higher bills start coming out, there's usually more activity with the call center.
Well, and a huge amount of that's tech movement, so we deal with that beginning, really throughout the later summer months.
Yeah, you can see last August was about the same level, so really it's kind of a seasonal thing. But I wanted to say also that our call center KPIs were not met this month, and one of the reasons is that our attendance was at 81% for the month. We've had a rash of sick leave and FMLA requests that have been authorized, and so we're running shorthanded a good part of the time. And so it's a problem that we're trying to sort out. On page 30 and 31, got an AMI project recap. We're right at 30%. Electric meters deployed, not quite as good on the water side, but electric meters about 30%. Deployments have been below what was anticipated, and so there's a number of actions that have been taken to get our deployments back on track, and that really involves bringing in additional personnel, some new contractors, and even some Itron meter installers are going to be coming in pretty soon if they're not already here.
Who are our contract vendors?
Itron is the main contractor for the advanced meters, and they're utilizing Compass Solutions, and who's the new one?
Keystone Utility Services.
So Compass and Keystone are the two vendors. One's handling electric, the other's handling water. And then Itron is also bringing in some of their own installers to assist with those two groups. So we really have three groups all overseen under the umbrella of Itron. They're managing that workload. But,
So is Itron the person we would notify if you had a complaint?
Yes.
yes, they have a.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Todd.
They call into LP&L. So any calls or complaints come into our call center here. Then if it has to do with the installations, it is the information is collected and pushed back to Itron is responsible for all of the contractors.
They cannot complete, I'm assuming those are not in the alley, those are in the backyard or up against the house or something on the dog. So if on the alley access, if the meters are in the alley, it's a lot easier. It's when they're inside the yard or on the house that these other things come into play.
That's correct. And that cannot complete, I'll remind you, is a first pass attempt. After they get onto that list, then they make multiple phone calls and additional visits after hours to try to gain access.
And what is it about denied access? They just say, no, you can't come in?
Sometimes, I want my husband here when it
Okay.
gets done, so I'm not going to let you do it right
There's a
now.
variety of reasons besides just not.
Correct.
Told my one more.
Okay, on page 33, there's a report on the CIS system, which is the other big project that's going on. If you look at the risk summary down at the bottom, I think things are progressing pretty well, although there are some interface designs that have not been finalized yet. So we've got some outside third-party software systems that will need to be interfaced with, and so those details are in the works. Cooper is probably the single most important one because it involves our billing. We can't get the interface done with Cooper in time, then we can't go live until the interface is working. Because that's what happened. That's this third party that manages our bills, sending the bills out, and also online payment activities. Okay, that was really all that I wanted to highlight in the report, but I've got a couple of other matters that I want to discuss as well. Are there any questions on the written materials? I wanted to mention that Eduardo Rodriguez, our engineering manager, resigned last week to accept a job with Encore. He's going to be a district manager for them, regional manager actually, in charge of several districts in this area. So we will be posting that job and hopefully get some qualified applicants for that important position. With our engineering manager leaving, we've restructured some of the activities that are going on there so that our construction activities associated with the 115 kV upgrade project and the other Encore projects, that has been moved over to Principal Services, LLC, and Jason Avent is actually the program manager now that is in charge of construction and all the construction-related activities, managing the project managers and the construction managers on all of the projects that are going on. So they will all now report to Jason instead of to the engineering manager. And engineering is going to focus more on engineering and reviewing the plans and specs and limiting their activities to just pure engineering work. I wanted to mention also about budget. There was a city council workshop last week, and I've got a few slides here that were presented at last week's workshop. But as you recall, the board approved the budget that included a 3% merit increase program. Well, the city recommended that we go to a 2.5% COLA, and there was a number of reasons for that, not directly related to EUB or the Electric Utility Board or the utility, but overall city finances, general fund issues really. So they recommended that we change our COLA, our pay increase to match the 2.5% COLA that the city did, and so that reduces operating expenses by about $100,000. But through some discussions with Jarrett, we we were able to also include an increase in pay for our journeyman lineman, one of the most critical positions that we've got in the organization, kind of the, I think the way Mr. Atkins referred to as point of the spear of LP&L. I thought that was a good way to describe it. These are the guys that restore power and do connects, disconnects, and build lines for new customers, storm work and all that. But anyway, it's a very important function, and we're 3 linemen short right now. We've had one position posted since December of last year that hasn't been filled, and we've got a new underground crew in next year's budget that I've been concerned about being able to fill those positions. So getting us up to $40 an hour, which is the recommendation that the City Council will be considering, it will put us in line with what other utilities in this region are paying, specs, SPS, and the other folks in this area are paying in that range. So this will get us very competitive on pay. So in order to balance the budget, basically you've got an increase of $146,000, and we have a proposed reduction in operating expenses for overtime of about $48,000. So that gets us back to a balanced budget. Yes, sir, Mr. Rupp.
You don't have to bring that back to us for approval?
It's my understanding that the City Council can make changes to the recommendations that the board approved without bringing it back to the board.
Okay. Well, I understand that they have authority over final budget, and it's kind of just upsets me because I hate code with a passion. Brother, sister people don't work for me. I was very happy to see we had a merit budget. I'm very unhappy that it's changed to a code, because I think the other way we pay for performance, it's more fair, allows you to reward the people that deserve it in more fashion. So just for the record, I'm very unhappy to see that be the case.
And Mr. Bell, I agree that merit program offers benefits that COLA doesn't offer. Mr. Atkins and I think, share the same opinion that we'd like to have a long-term program that is merit pay based. It just wasn't possible to do this year with the finances at the city.
Yeah, I understand in past, and I'm not saying this council, okay, but in past council have used quasi-line item veto to manipulate, that's not the right term, to move our budget around to what was desired. Not anybody in this room, but that's been disappointing in the past. In other words, till you change this, we're not going to approve your budget.
Right.
That's just unfortunate.
Well, can I add? I mean, from our perspective, I agree. I think we probably all agree with what you said, with the way the city budget works out this year. And keep in mind, the budget does include a 1 cent tax increase as it sits at 2.5%. We didn't think there was enough there to create a merit-based system.
See, I think, Steve, I've had history with that. You're in the private sector too. Personally, I think a 2.5 would have been plenty on merit too, because you have retirement, you have what you call it, people coming and going. What's the right term? Turnover. Yeah, you have turnover. You have attrition. That's what I'm looking for. So if that's the case, if it's even possible and not too late, I'd be happy with the 2.5% merit versus the total. I think that'd be plenty of money to reward the people who deserve it. But anyway, it's in the city council's hands, I understand.
Mitch McCullough, is $40 going to just barely keep us in there, or is it going to help us recruit? I'm like Jared. These guys and gals, I think it's all, are so important to us with outage service. Is that enough to get us to compete with others? Because we got vacancies and we got recruiting. So I just need an honest opinion.
I think it will be. I think it will get us in the ballpark of what others are paying. Neighboring
Is it below
utilities.
some others?
It's above some and below some others, so we're in the competitive range now with going to 40. And plus our benefits, if we could argue that with the 2-for-1 match that we've got on GMRS, that's probably above what the others are
Okay,
getting. in
so
terms
you feel like the 40 is a good
I
enough?
think 40 is a good number, and that's what our guys out at the Hill think as well.
Health insurance benefits also impacted.
So with benefits, is it about your salary plus 25%, 24%? What is that range?
Depends on the pay grade. The pension changes with the pay grade. The health insurance does not. Good rule of thumb is about 38.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McCall, you said you're adding a line for a team at the end of this year, is that correct?
This is going to affect October 1.
No, the crew, you said you're gonna add another crew.
It was in the board approved budget to add an underground crew for next.
Where do we stack up as many crews you have compared to the other ones and things like that? As we continue to go and south and west continues to go.
You know, we haven't really evaluated that. I just know we've got a tremendous amount of work, particularly for underground crews. They've been scheduled out, booked out pretty far in advance, and it's causing us some problems with being able to get maintenance done and other things done. We have to push some of that back so we can work on the commercial developments, the residential developments, all the stuff that's going on at Tech campus. There's a lot of underground work going on around Tech campus. Eating up our work hours. And creating quite a bit of overtime too. So that's just the budget balancing adjustment thing that I talked about. Any questions on any of that? All right, now Jason is going to give the 115 kV upgrade.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we're going to start with the 115 overall program. We've added one additional project that was not previously on your board book, so we'll see that at the very last. So for the overall program roll-up, this will be reporting through at least 16 different projects. Just project a little more. Overall change from last month till now, mainly just an update on the overall budget amendments. I know last month we made a few identifications of projects that are going to have, or tracking to have a budget amendment. Currently we're going through those numbers now, still on track for next month, so September EUB. We'll have those presentations ready for your group, and I'll identify those through the projects as I come across them, so just a heads up there. We're going to go a little faster through the projects that don't have as much of an update, and we'll focus on the ones that have a little bit more construction activities. So first project at McDonald. McDonald still is finalizing one tiebreaker. Overall, the station construction is complete, and we're just wrapping that project up. The next is Chalker to Oliver. Similar situation. Overall construction is complete. There's some minor distribution work that still has to be done by internal LP&L crews. But from a construction standpoint, that project is in completion and at closeout. Chalker to Thompson. So due to some underground utility obstructions, as we mentioned previously, that project was slid forward, looking to start around January of 2020. Only real updates on this is we are tracking forward on engineering, no real issues there, and same thing with materials already on site. So 2020, January 2020, we're looking to be a good date. Slayton Substation, it's the same position it was last month. It is complete. We're just waiting on the tie. So our contractors have mobilized the site. As of yesterday, the last pole has left delivery from Tulsa and should be on site today or tomorrow. Red Raider substation is also complete. We're doing the Red Raider tie. So the Red Raider tap in parallel with the Slayton tap are being done simultaneously by the same contractor. Same issue with that was going to be a slight delay in delivery of poles. Those poles were or did leave site 2 days ago, expected on site today on 8/20. Overall there, we're looking to be on schedule. Some distribution work being done in parallel to kind of have some efficiency of groups utilizing some outages, but no issues or concerns with that project. So McKenzie Substation Phase 1 is complete. We actually have the third note under construction on the very bottom of your status update. Since last week, this has actually changed. So the overall commissioning of that relay panel is going to wait until Phase 2. But other than that, all of Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 is going to start in January. And kind of a note, I'm going to kind of add in Northwest McKenzie with the McKenzie substation. So if you take a brief look on overall construction, we're going to be completing McKenzie Phase 2 around the 4th of June in 2020. And we're targeting completion of the Northwest McKenzie line at the end of April. So just keep that in mind for just a second. Thompson-Vicksburg line. Right now we have, last EUB board, y'all awarded the contract to utility, or to the substation contractor, T-line contractor, I apologize. Felix is working real hard to get the overall construction books printed and out. We've had a few issues with the contractor getting the bonds and all the certifications as they should be, so we're looking to push the start of construction about a week to a week and a half, but it should not impact the overall in-service date for that T-line. We appreciate Felix's help on that. We have sent out some unidentified fiber letters to neighboring utilities. Some fiber we had identified via potholing that no one's taken ownership of. So we've gone through the channels to make sure we inform everyone out there that there's fiber that could possibly be cut. This is one of the projects that the team has identified may not have adequate contingency, and we're going to take a closer look at the overall budget for that project, and we'll report back next month to your group, to the board. Vicksburg substation, the very first comment you have under construction, we were looking to try to utilize some of the existing ground grid. However, if we did some due diligence on the overall cost, we're going to just follow the construction plan that was already approved and install a new ground grid. So a little bit of a change in notes there. That was made last week. The WEC transformer, the very last issue concern for this project, is being retested this week. So we're hoping to get an update on that one. While obviously it's not in the best interest to have a transformer that's not passing original FAT tests, we feel confident that they will. And with the overall delay of the Vicksburg substation, it actually worked out in our best interest. This transformer didn't arrive early.
Is it unusual for a transformer to fail testing, or is that 5% of the time it happens, or?
So it depends on why it failed. Here it seemed like it was a pretty, it was more of a testing error than it was necessarily a transformer error.
Okay.
So the overall team feels pretty confident with that. It's more of how they actually set up the test equipment.
Okay.
Oliver substation, everything's progressing well with the station, overall design, procurement. Only one call out is, again, with the overall contingency for the project. We've identified that may be a little low, so we're going to be focusing on that report for next month. Northwest McKenzie, the construction team, let me take a step back. So the overall right-of-way acquisition process is looking to take a little longer than was originally anticipated. So instead of having construction start October 1st, as we had reported last month's EUB, we pushed that to November to allow right-of-way a little bit more time and not have as much pressure on that. With that being said, as I mentioned before, with the overall McKenzie substation, McKenzie is going to be complete the 1st of June. Right now we're targeting with this shift 1 month in the start of the T-line, that we're still going to beat that by a month and a week. Month to week and a half, somewhere, we're looking at April 16th. So we're still going to be ahead of schedule with Northwest McKenzie. That being said, we don't have a lot of free time here. System conditions are going to possibly require Northwest McKenzie as a backup for the ability to shoot fly around McKenzie if need be and put this line in service early. So we don't want to continue to delay this project. We want to move it forward even ahead of the overall McKenzie station coming into service. Same thing with the budget with this one. Looking to be a lower initial estimate than was originally anticipated, not so much a contingency issue, but overall budget concern. We will have that identified, and we'll go through that next month during the September EUB meeting. Erskine to McKenzie T-line, we've actually brought it a little sooner than was originally shown to y'all during the previous months. Reason for that is its sister project, Northwest McKenzie. We're going to look to work that from the east to the west. So it's kind of a flip-flop from what we had originally thought. In doing this, we think we'll have a little better constructability, because actually there's a double circuit portion of Northwest McKenzie where Erskine McKenzie line will pick up and move forward. So we don't have contractors possibly standing on each other's toes, since it's going to be 2 individual RFPs. We wanted to make sure that we spread the projects out the right direction and start at the right location. So in doing that, we're going to be starting in December where originally we were thinking January. So actually brought this project a little sooner. Same comment with the initial estimates with Erskine and McKinsey. We'll have a budget update for y'all next month. No real updates on Holly Substation and Tie. It's progressing well in regards to purchase orders are on track and still targeting mid-June of 2020. However, with the overall contingency that was designated for this project, we had concerns with that, so we'll update that for next month. Southwest Oliver, I'm still working with Excel on some crossing agreements and joint use agreements. We're hoping to have that done here pretty soon. We're looking to push back on some of their concerns on as-built verifications and see if we can't utilize our internal LP&L as-built verifications instead of having to pay them to rework theirs. But we'll have that identified and answered by next month. Holly to Southeast. Only thing really, other than engineering in progress right now, is right-of-way, and right-of-way has finished with they've scheduled their appraisals, and the survey is on schedule. They have finished pulling all title on that project.
Is that project, is that the one that upgrades from 69 to 115 kV on East 82nd Street?
Say second acre.
Actually, I don't even think 82nd exists out there, but it would be if there were.
I think that's right.
Yes, is that it?
Yeah.
And you're in the process of right away?
Correct.
Okay, well, I've had some inquiries about what we're going to do out there. So
Now, we're rebuilding the existing line that's there now.
are you going to put new structures in or
Yes.
just use the old?
We put new structures in, they'll have to be taller than what's there now.
This is where again?
It's East 82nd where basically paving goes away out there.
Okay, well, I'll get with you later.
Okay. Holly to Slayton. Same with it on engineering. It's proceeding as scheduled. Procurement has not begun yet. Right away, title is in progress. Not completed, and appraisal and surveys are scheduled as well. I'm trying to utilize same contractors there as Holly to Southeast and Holly to Slayton, try to get some efficiencies. New project for this EUB report is going to be the Southeast Substation. Pretty early on in this overall project, as you'll see, we don't anticipate much spend until about Q2, Q3 of 2020. So obviously phase one was completed a while back, so now we're targeting phase two. The IFC drawings are under review by external LP&L engineers. We're waiting comment back to get to Black & Beach for incorporation. Start of construction is not until September of 2020. And I apologize, I have the last two pages kind of in a backwards order. The 115 voltage conversion schedule, we're still in conversation internally at LP&L as well as Black & Beach on working through this. It is obviously well in the future, but high on our priority list to make sure that, one, we're clearly articulating any outages that we would anticipate. We're trying to get those down to zero on the overall conversion, or customer outages, that is. And just trying to walk through the step sequence to ensure that from a constructability standpoint, everything construction-wise is going to be done in advance of when the conversion schedule would need to happen. And if that's not possible, to make sure at the very least it's on opposite sides of the system so we don't impact or jeopardize being ready for ERCOT. Step back one page, Encore schedule overall for Encore. No big changes from last month. Obviously with the overall CCN negotiation, there's been some movement there. But from a schedule perspective, the end dates have not shifted from the first day that we showed this 3 months ago till now. Some of the start dates have changed, but have held consistent at August 8th since last EUB. Troy's leading those projects. If you have any specific questions, we can have Troy answer those for y'all.
Questions? All right, so we're getting around in seven.
Yes,
Yeah, before Renew gets started on her presentation, I want to do a brief introduction of a new employee. We have Tanika Williams, stand up. She is a new financial analyst with us. She started actually yesterday, so we're throwing her into the mix today. So
Yeah, I think you're up there.
she's going to be doing helping Ranu with a monthly financial analysis, and she'll be working on the budget as we get back into that before we.
Welcome.
No.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. And we're going to throw Tanika the wolves next month. We're just giving her a break this month. So, let's get started with our recap of the month. I'll start you off with income statement and see all we did this month. So our operating revenues are looking a little bit lower. We are down by $17.1 million. And now that is due to our PPRF rates that we have set back in October of 2018 and one more on June 1st. We have about $3.3 million decrease in our base rate and about $13.3 million in our pass-through revenues. But on the other hand, our expenses are just as low. We are a decrease of 16.7 in total. The larger of those category comes from supply, maintenance, and other. In supply and maintenance, we had about $200,000 increase in the past month and about total of $1.9 million decrease, which offset to total of 1.6. And that was.
Before you go any further, I just want to make sure I understand. So on page 60, the June was before the new rates came in, or was our initial summer rates, right?
Pass-through rates were decreased June 1st. So
Okay, but then we got another decrease going in. Okay, so the over collection just for June was 1.6.
Correct.
Okay,
Just for one month.
making sure I understand. Okay.
All right. All right. So moving on to our expenses, the other line that shows the largest amount of decrease at 14.5 is our purchase of fuel and power. Now that is due to our lower regional prices of natural gas from Permian Basin. We continue to see that decrease, and I hope that lasts a little bit longer. Our transfers are also low when we compare it to the prior year. That's also because prior year used to be a catch-up year for all the transfers, which we don't have to do this year. So we have slight decrease in that. So moving on to our balance sheet, we do see a slight decrease in our cash and investment in current month. That is only due to a timing of our invoices and the payments to the escrow. There is nothing substantial going up. Next month, I think we should be going back to the normal. Now, on the other hand, accounts receivable are down by 5.9 this month when you compare it to the year-end numbers. But when we compare it to the prior month, we have an increase of $4 million. So as the months continue to get hotter, as David mentioned, the heat continues to grow. On a month-to-month basis, we should be seeing an increase. But when we compare it to the year-end, we have a slight amount of decrease. Also, our AR receivable last year is 35.75 versus 49.88 that we had. So our collection numbers are looking good. And as I said, the summer gets hotter, we'll get a better number. Our restricted investment is another category. We're down by $29.8 million, but that's good as we're spending all that money in constructing our new business and keeping Jason and Troy's team really busy. And that decrease is offset by our increase in the capital assets. So when we look at the capital asset in total, from last month to this month, you'll see a $5.4 million increase in only construction in progress category. So that's where we are spending it all. On the liability side of things, we have a decrease of 4.3 in our AP and a due to line item. Now that is caused largely due to two items. We have a decrease of $3.6 million in our regular invoices and payments and our vendor payments, and about 766 lower WTMP invoice due to fuel prices. AP is just timing; it should go back to normal, and our deferred revenue are down by 15.5. Now that is due to the change in our natural gas prices. So continue to decrease that, and as Mr. Gregg mentioned, 1.6 million over collection since last year.
Kind of quick question over on the income statement. I noticed that interest expense was up significantly, and it looks like our bond indebtedness and maybe all of our indebtedness is down.
Correct.
What is that?
Interest expense is made up of several different interest expense, and if you look at it in a netting category of it, where everything is netting in the non-operating expenses, we actually have a higher interest earning. Is it the number you're talking about, or should I come back to you?
I guess that's what I'm trying to compare. June of 18 was $401,000 of interest expense, at least on page 60 of 269. And June of this year was $938,000. Is that the line of credit facility that we have?
No, I think that really has just to do with the timing of
The timing
interest.
of
Timing.
Yes, I think it's,
Do we not accrue it kind of evenly throughout every month, or is it on a cash basis that we reflect?
We do accrue it every month. That is what we do in our other accruals. That's where it's timed up. So if you look into our liability section, you will see accrued interest payable right underneath accrued liability. That's where accruing on the consistent basis. But mostly it's the timing of the payment and when we made those payments. Does that help?
Well,
Okay.
really, it basically says we're on a cash basis as opposed to accrual. We may accrue it and then pay it, but we don't reflect it as an expense until we actually write the check.
We reflect it as an expense, but we only make an interest payment twice a year, but we accrue it all throughout the year. So whenever the expense is recorded, yes, you might see a slight.
Well, I would understand that would affect the accrual, that we might have accrued it up to a high level and we paid it and it came down. But monthly, do we not have like a standard interest expense accrual?
On the standard monthly interest that we accrue, those are only related to all the bonds and interest accruals. If we have any other interest earned that are not related to bonds, you might see a slight increase.
Yeah, and I think the answer is that we issued all those bonds last year. We didn't use the money until later this year.
Later this year.
So we incurred, well, we hadn't used it all.
And you-
But then we paid some bonds back.
but you would expect to see an increase in our monthly interest expense this year because we issued $98 million last year.
That's the answer.
So you're on a monthly
That's
basis.
the answer. We issued those bonds last year, last August. I think.
Yes.
So they've been outstanding all year.
And that was almost a doubling of our outstanding debt. And so that makes some sense that you'd see a pretty significant monthly increase.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you.
That's
That's the genesis of that.
All right. So let me take you back to the liabilities of it. And right here, since we're talking about bonds, we have the decrease in bonds payable by 18.5 because of our payment made. Yes, sir.
Could you mention page numbers so that those of us who are having this scroll?
Oh, okay. I'm truly very sorry. My presentation is not page number, but I'll make sure I do that next month.
This is on page 59, is what she's referring to, right? Sorry.
Actually,
I'm sorry
it's
about
up
that.
on second page 14 on these slides. In the packet. Or in the iPad. I don't know if you know
The PowerPoint slides are not in your print. Or not.
Right, those are last month's. And so, 59 is going to be the page for liabilities that we're talking about for this one.
Is there a reason the PowerPoint slides are not available to us?
I would be certainly happy to make them available to you.
We typically finalize these right before the meeting. We could certainly attempt to get you copies in advance, but sometimes.
Come on, Brandon. Email it to me and I'll send it to you.
If that's the desire of the board, we can definitely do that.
What?
I can put it on all the documents right now.
Summary what's already here. There's no difference. Richardson.
It's just hard to follow.
Well, I think what's missing on iPads, we don't have the ability to go to a specific page. That could be done easily. But all we got on the right is
Can I say something real quick?
Please.
On the agenda, if you go to, click back to agenda at the top. At the top of your page, there's a back to agenda. Okay, now if you'll scroll down to we're on number 8, and just touch number 8,
I don't see go back to agenda anywhere on the top of my page.
then shrink your page down some, so that you can see the whole page.
gonna happen. Is there a-
Hey, Brandon needs to get on it. Come on.
We'll keep going and we'll.
All right. If you're okay with it, let me take you to the next slide, and we'll catch up. Okay? How about that? So we'll get to the cash flow, and it seems like we've done a pretty good job on our cash flow. We have an overall positive cash flow, so all things looking great over there. Our operating activities also positive, 6.1 million. So when you compare it to the prior month, we do see a slight amount of increase. That is, as I mentioned, is due to the payments to the supplier. Our accounts payable is very volatile. We can't predict it, but it is in pretty much the same category as we would expect that. Our cash flow from financing activity, if you would mention, we have a negative 7.1 million. That goes to show our ability to make our debt payment, and all that money is being spent on all of our capital projects. So good thing there. And our investing activity is down 1.4 million. That is us making more investment into our future. So we're overall looking good. Tying back to the balance sheet. And now let's do a budget comparison to where we stand in the prior year. So you would see our consumer meter revenue has gone up by 6.6%. And we have a 96.99% in all other revenue, which has gone out. So now that is largely due to outside work orders. We have new poles and new construction going. We have an increase of 290,000 over there. We have interest earning that has increased by 862,000, and our power marketing revenue has gone up by 865,000. So as the city grows, we continue to do more work and grow along with it. And on our expense side of the budget, this is the third quarter of our year. So if you would imagine, we should be everywhere along 75% of the budget that we would have spent by now. And in those terms, we're doing very good. We are just right around 75% or largely below 75%. Two categories that are largely below is transmission and administration. Now those costs are down because we have legal, engineering, administration cost, and one category that is higher is 76% is the fund level expenses. So it's because us making a debt payment and all the other transfer. But that shouldn't change as we clearly make payment once a year. So overall, though, our expenses at 64%, which is good, still tracking less than 75% that we would have anticipated. And that concludes my presentation. Besides technical questions of technology, I'll be happy to answer any other ones. Yes.
The question I would have is on the budget on the distribution. If you look on page 62, it seems that most of those areas, or several of them, are over the 75% of budget items. Is there any particular explanation for that, or is that just goes along with all the projects that we're doing?
When we were doing the analysis, there was nothing else that flagged up within the individual categories. So I believe it's just going along with our construction and project, and as we start doing more and more stuff. But if there is tracking way higher than what we anticipate next month, I'll be happy to break it down into more details and show you what's happening.
Well, I'm specifically looking at like line 7413 overhead is 90% of budget.
Correct.
So is there some of that could be capitalized that might need to go into projects, or?
I think Andy, you spoke to it last month. We're going to come back with a master budget amendment, each one of these.
Not in this area, not on the operating budget. A lot of times when the budget is put into place, more than a year prior to where we are now, there's a lot of unknowns, and so what we typically look at is distribution in total is on track to remain under budget. You do have some departments where they are running over. You have some other departments that are under. So that shows and illustrates that there's been a shift from where we originally anticipated the work to occur to where it is actually occurring. But we also look at it in a total basis, and even though there are some that are in that 90% range overall, we also have some that are in the 40% range. Yeah. So they all work to offset each other, and so we also are managing that to ensure that the overall costs are remaining within the budgeted expectations.
So you don't think there's any CIP in here?
There should not be. We try to keep an eye on that, and then sometimes that does occur where possibly accidentally some capital items are charged into the operating budget, and we're always looking for that. We do an analysis. One thing that Tanika's going to be working and helping us with in the future is reviewing all of those line items to what looks odd, what large invoices might hit the operating budget that should have been hitting the capital. So that's kind of a maintenance item that we do on a monthly basis, and so we try to keep that clean as best we are able. And you know, another thing too is if the crews, because the majority of these budget cost centers are comprised of compensation, you know, if they shift and have to be working on distribution rather than capital, then sometimes we have lower charges going to the capital, higher charges going to operating. So it's fluid somewhat. We try to hit it overall, and that's where we're going to have to look at it this year. It's kind of from the larger picture.
Any other questions? Financials? All right.
All right. Are you ready to move on to item 9? Okay. This discussion is going to be covering net metering. If you remember, I did give a presentation in March related to a similar topic. It was a little bit different in nature, but wanted to just a brief overview so we can facilitate some discussion among the board. First of all, solar photovoltaic, or PV. There is a significant increase in interest in the PV systems. Cost is declining, the technology is improving, so there's more and more of our citizens that are interested in that. I pointed out in March, did an analysis on the expense related to solar systems, which can be quite expensive, and we always encourage our citizens to, before they explore going solar, to look at other areas to save money on their home. And we have some areas on our website through Powerful Pointers and through the Energy Depot to help our customers find other ways to save before they start looking at solar for an alternative. One thing that I know the city put out a press release a week or two ago. I know that was Ms. Councilwoman Joy really helped us in that regard to state that we are not endorsing, we are not in partnership with any of the companies in the city that are selling these solar systems. And also we encourage citizens if they have someone at their door that they can ask to make sure they have a peddler's permit to make sure they are authorized to be able to selling door to door. So I think that's important, as we have quite a large amount of solar companies across the city that are trying to sell systems to our customers, and we certainly encourage our customers to do a lot of homework on that before making any decisions on whether or not a solar system might save them any money. If a customer does decide to install solar on their home or on their business, we do offer what's called a net metering rate for both commercial and residential. Right now, we have all residential, all the customers that have signed up for residential. We had one commercial customer sign up. They have not actually installed their solar system yet. So right now we have only residential customers, and the tariff requires that system be less than 10 kW. We do require that the customers sign an interconnect agreement so they are approved to operate in parallel operation with LP&L. Net metering means that the meter runs forward when the customer is consuming electricity from us, and it runs backwards when they are a producer. They're producing more than they're consuming. And the rate currently, or the meter currently, is reset at 0 at the beginning of each month, meaning that if they overproduce within a given month, that they do not get credit for that in the following month. Yes, sir.
Andy, that go back one slide. At 10 kW, what's that based on? In other words, they're going to get ahead of their spies if I want to stop.
No, you're not.
My concern is the solar companies are going to be all over this, and if they had their way, each house would be a power plant. They put a megawatt on it and then be selling it back to us. So I'm glad we got that. But so if somebody has a 1,000 square foot house, they're just going to be 10 kW, so they can overproduce a lot.
I think back in March, in one of my slides, I had stated that a 7.5 kW system would produce about 1,000 kilowatt hours. And that's our average customers, maybe slightly below that. So that kind of gives you an idea. 10 kW would produce probably a little bit more than the average customer, but you're right. It contains it where people aren't producing 3 or 4 times more than what they might consume in their home.
At least sure that would promote people doing that if we had no limit on that. Do you have any idea of ballpark what size home and 10 kW would handle?
No, I'm not sure I can help there. Sorry.
I think a rule of thumb that we used to use for just kind of a standard brick house, 1,500 square feet would be about 15 kW peak load. So 10 kW solar cell would be less than their peak load requirement. But peak load is different than your average load.
The plus side of that is that prevents a customer from spending more than he has to on solar energy. Because he wouldn't, with net metering, it wouldn't give him any benefits. Is that right?
Well, it wouldn't currently, but I think one of the things we're talking about today will be on a future slide is do we want to offer some kind of payback or thing in the future?
But right now, we don't allow someone to buy enough to cover their peak load.
We have it set at 10 kW. We talked when we were going through the tariff changes for this year. We talked about whether we wanted to make a change to that or not, and even base it on the size of the house or the average load or something like that. And we decided that was too complicated for right now. We've got too much going on for the folks in our customer service department to be spending a bunch of time on that right now. So that's something we might.
My end game question. That's what I was getting at, because maybe that's not realistic. But once someone puts a system in, how will we keep track of it if they go add something and don't tell us just by looking at the bill?
You could. I mean, we'll have some really useful information when we start getting this AMI data in and where we can analyze it. But yeah, you can do some. Now we have some systems out there that are larger than 10 kW that slip through the cracks. Some that were there before we got our tariff fully deployed. But we're holding the line right now and have been very strict on that 10 kW limit. There are some potential engineering problems associated with having a bunch of solar out there that's all larger than 10 kW and overloading your distribution feeders, things like that. So without doing a lot of study, I'm not comfortable increasing that limit beyond 10 kW at this point in time.
So in other words, you're saying to be eligible for the current program, you have to have a system that produces less than 10 kW.
Gross power rating 10 kW max.
Okay. If somebody bought a big Gorilla one, they're not eligible to be in the program. Is that what you're saying?
We have had a few that have applied for larger units than that. We've sent them back and said, 10 kW is our limit in our tariff, and they've come back generally with 9.99 kW or something.
I just want to know, that's the pool. Those are the parameters, 10 kW.
Right.
Okay.
And just so you know, too, back from my presentation a few months ago, 7 kW, I did everything based on a 7 kW system because that was more of a norm, was about $19,000 to $25,000 cost to that system before the tax credit. After tax credit, it's $13,000 to $17,000. So, it's a pretty significant investment in your home where, we'd also, without any battery added into all this equation, it took, roughly 20-year payback or so, on average. So it's a long payback, which is probably not what a lot of citizens are being told when they're approached to purchase one of these.
When they sign their contract, or whatever you want to call it, then they are signing off that their system is 10 kW or less.
Now, there's an inspection permit, yes, sir. Yes, that's correct. They do state in there they have to state what size their unit is. And, of course, there's an inspection process they have to go through the city for the permitting and all of that as well. So it's not just, we don't really know what's going on. Of course, there may be people installing systems without going through a permit process. That happens, but they're supposed to go through that process, and so there's an inspection process on top of this interconnect agreement and all of that.
These less than responsible solar companies will probably use this to their advantage in some way to try to, not with the contract with the customer, but with the fluff, overselling it. That's what it is.
Well, and we did run a comparison between the customers who had obtained permits versus what LP&L is showing in terms of usage. And there were some people we're not involved with any of those companies. What we're seeing, particularly in an area where there are a lot of new homes, they're hitting them very early. And there's a reason for that. First of all, 20 years payback. New roof is the second. And there's still a question about, what happens if you had to get a new roof. I mean, there's lots of questions. And we just, Matt, you attached kind of the overview on solar, did you not?
The Q&A kind of.
Yes, we created an FAQ document that's now on our website that goes through.
We're hoping people will really read those because, Jane, as we all know, the young people are all into it. But you can't keep people from doing things they shouldn't do, but you do want them to be well informed before they add another $20,000 to a mortgage. Because how long does anybody stay in a house anymore? How often do they move? And there are all kinds of legal questions that we can't answer. But out of concern for the citizens who are doing this, they really need to know what they're doing.
The answer to the roof is they have to remove the panels and the brackets and put the roof on them, put the solar panel back up.
I don't know. I'm just saying there are lots of questions.
It just seems backward to me. It seems like instead of limiting people, we should, I know we don't want to encourage people to get into things they don't understand. But it seems like it would benefit LP&L if we're getting into an account and we only have to buy what we have to buy.
It may benefit LP&L, but it doesn't benefit the customer, at least in Lubbock, Texas, because electricity costs are so low. It makes complete sense in California, and Arizona, Hawaii, and Connecticut, and some of those areas where energy costs are twice as high as they are here. But it is a difficult return on your investment in Lubbock, Texas today with the current cost. Now, there may be ways to really benefit. I think today, my belief, this is me, is that if you want to be in green energy, you're going to pay a premium for that in Lubbock, Texas. And that's certainly, a lot of people are interested in that and want to do that and are willing to pay that premium. But please don't be convinced that I'm going to save a fortune here or I'm going to eliminate my power bill. That's a difficulty in Lubbock with where our energy costs are, at least today.
Well, it seems like we ought to be able to explain that part without looking like we don't want you to do it. I think that the perception is that LP&L is making money because we're charging more to people who have solar panels than you would, the basic cost. And if you're limiting them to 10 kW, it just seems, we've got lots of sun, and it seems like it would benefit us as well as even if it isn't low cost, we've got summer high demand, and we've got 300 days of sun that lasts about 23 hours a day. It just seems like this would be a good place. That would be part. If you're talking about production, if we were moving into having production again, why wouldn't that be a production that would be a positive direction?
And there are many ways to tackle this. And if you look across, specifically the state of Texas, every utility does it differently. In Austin, they offer many incentives. They pay a very high rebate to their customers. They're really pushing it. It is their probably highest cost source of power in Austin, because they're paying a premium to incentivize it to their citizens, and it's all over the place. I think I would say we are closer to the norm now. There's probably more of the norm are allowing credits to be carried forward, or to allow the banking, what we call it, or the buyback. There are some options there, and I'll get into that in a moment. But maybe that's a really good idea to moving forward. We have some issues with our billing system currently, and in the future, timing issues. But there are many ways to tackle this, and it's all policy decision really on what direction we go related to solar and how we incentivize it or don't incentivize it. But I see where you're coming from. I'm not trying to be too negative. I'm just trying to encourage the citizens to be very, very careful and do their homework before they buy a very expensive piece of equipment on their home and in retrospect find out that it didn't save them any money. Now, if they know going in advance that I'm going to pay a little bit of a premium for it and I want to do it for these multiple reasons, I just want people to be informed of that.
Andy, I know a lot of the solar companies are giving customers the impression of 6, 7, 8 years as a payback, but that's not in the contract anymore. It's not guaranteed at all. Right. With our low cost of energy.
And I think it's individual. Every home uses a different level of energy. I mean, you could let 10 people all living in a 2,000 square foot home could all have very different utility bills. And so you can't, it's not a cookie cutter event. You have to individually analyze it and understand it and be sophisticated enough in your analysis to really know what you're getting yourself into.
Mr. Bertram, if the payback is somewhere around 15 years, 15 to 20 years, what is the useful life of most of these units?
From what I've seen, it's around 20 to 25 years roughly.
So they will produce a standard amount for that period of time.
They diminish over the years. It's like a 2% per year decrease in output. But you have to count that in as well. You know, that if you buy, if you're producing 1,000 kilowatt hours today, in year 20, it may only be producing 750 kilowatt hours. And so that's part of the equation and part of being educated on how these systems work.
So won't the smart metering allow us to do some monitoring and so we can spot users if somebody's putting a 20 megawatt system in or something like that, we'll be able to identify that, I assume.
Todd is nodding his head.
Yes.
Meter police.
Yeah, and in fact, I mean the having interval data in general provides a lot more information in if you want to police it, but also in allowing individual customers to make a better decision because you're still only producing power during sunlight hours, and so you can really see during the day where your power usage is and what your profile is because your load profile during the day will be different and affect the payback differently as well.
And what Mr. Taylor was asking a while ago about the life expectancy of these solar panels, do you know whether or not insurance companies will cover a solar panel like a head start?
Yes, but you have to add it to your, I think you have to add it to your policy.
It would be extremely expensive.
I don't know. If somebody has one told me, I think they have to get a letter or insurance companies.
But that adds to the payback time too.
Absolutely. That's part of the homework.
Well, it's just things like, why can't you carry it over to the next year? That just seems puny. It's not, that doesn't have anything to do with your decision of whether to buy it or not. It's just, why not?
Right. And that's one thing we're going to be talking about do we want to go that route or not. Okay. Back in March when I presented, we had 43 residential customers, and you can see we had a range of 1 kW up to 16.8. Mr. McCollum mentioned a moment ago we had a few outliers that had larger systems before the tariff was in place, so we do have a couple that are larger than that 10 kW. And then at that time, we also had 20 pending residential customers. As of July 31st, we have 106 residential customers, so you can see a significant increase, 43 pending. So if you look at a chart of the growth, we went from October of 15 when we implemented net metering, really until about April of 18 with not much movement, but you've seen a dramatic uptick. It's not a large number of customers, but a large increase in installations. The red illustrates those that are in pending mode, and the blue is actual installed on homes. So we have had a significant increase, and so it's a good time to be talking about this. Another thing to remember is the tax credits are going away. After 19, they start ratcheting down. This is the last year where they are at 100%, or whatever it is, 30%. And then it ratchets down next year to 26, 22, and then 10. So there's a lot of push by solar companies to get people signed up this year. So I think that's one reason we're seeing a big increase locally. So 106 net metering customers, as I mentioned, as of July 31st. Of those, 23 have actually been a customer of ours for a full year. So that subset of customers kind of gives us an idea of what they have seen throughout that time period. So the average net metering customer has used 1,128 kilowatt hours. They have produced, on average, 413 kilowatt hours per month for an average net consumer position of 715 kilowatt hours. So in total, that group of customers is still net consumers of electricity and are producing a portion. Now, this is all over the place. You know, we have two customers out of the 23 that have actually produced more than they've consumed over that 12-month period. Everyone else has been a consumer throughout the year, or at least consecutively. On average, customers that are of those 23, about 2 months of the year they are producing more than they're consuming on average. So that kind of gives you an idea. 10 months out of the year, they're net consumers. 2 months, they're net producers. This average customer, and the bill that they would see is this far right column, the net. That's what they would see when they get their bill. But if you break it down between consumption and production, you can see about $102.88 is what they would pay under the net metering rate. Basically, what we're crediting them for on their solar production is about $27. So that 413 kilowatt hours gets them about a $27 credit on their bill. So their net monthly bill before taxes and fees is $75.50 for those average customers. So that means if you take the $27 divided by the 413 kilowatt hours, that solar production cost us about 6.6 cents. Our average cost of power for our total portfolio is about 4.7 cents. So we are paying a higher rate than our average cost of power that we're purchasing. So if you look at it from that perspective, we're giving that customer a pretty decent benefit in my mind. They're getting more back for that power they produce than what we're paying for our total portfolio on average. Now, we have a variety ourselves within our portfolio of a different power cost, but our average cost is at 4.7 cents. So I don't think the solar customers are currently getting a bad deal. They're just, and that's the full 413. And I've looked at customers who are overproducing, and it still would, even if we allowed them to bank or if we allowed them to if we did a buyback, we would still have a higher cost of this power compared to our overall portfolio of energy. Some different options that we have, though, is called banking. That currently, as I mentioned a moment ago, if you overproduce in this month, you don't get to carry that credit over. There is an option where we could allow customers to carry that credit forward. So if they overproduce this month, they could use that in the following month. And typically what utilities do that offer that, they do that within a 12-month period. So you can carry over for a 1-year period, and then whatever, if you've overproduced or underproduced, you start over in that next year. So that's what the majority of utilities do that offer the banking. There is also what we call buyback, kind of a combination of carrying those credits over. If you ended that 12-month period, net producer, where we have 2 customers right now that have done that, technically we would buy back that overproduction at a different rate. Typically, utilities that do this, we buy it back at our avoided cost, which is, in our case, is around 2.4 cents a kilowatt hour. And so that is typically how that works across the country, and utilities that allow that. You can also do a monthly buyback. So if they have you could look at it on a month-by-month basis, or you can do it over a 12-month period or a 24-month period, and buy back whatever that overproduction might be at those given times. So those are some options. And again, I've kind of mentioned this. Of all of those 2 options, the majority allow banking over a 12-month period. And do not allow any excess to be carried over. And the majority really don't do the buyback, but there are utilities that do a buyback at the end.
What's the rationale on why can't it just be ongoing? rationale of that, starting to be a little bit
If you, well, are you saying not start the meter over, just allow them to credit indefinitely?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? I don't necessarily know the answer to that, other than just looking at what is more of a norm in the utility industry. I don't know if there's, I don't know the answer.
Would have to do with the cost of the job.
It might be just a matter of closing out the books on an annual basis, and our costs do change through time.
It takes quite a bit of alterations in the billing system to manage this too, and so it does probably would help in some of those issues. Let me do a final slide, and then we open it up for more discussion. Just saying, if you're interested in looking into the impact of what banking or buyback options would be, or if you're interested in looking in any other options, we do have NewGen, who has helped us with our cost of service study and do our rate studies on occasion. They are available to do a quick review, to come back with options for us, what impacts that would have, and present us with their findings. That could be done in relative short order. What would then happen is if we go forward in that direction, obviously it requires revision to the tariff, which would then need to be approved by the board and the city council. And then it would require changes to the billing system and our bill print configuration. And currently we are not making changes to the existing billing system. And so if we were to go forward with a change in the tariff, we would recommend doing that alongside or after the go live of the new system. Once the new system is in place, then we could modify the rates to accommodate any changes that we put in place. So I'll open it up for more discussion, but that is kind of
I think banking makes a lot more sense to me, Andy, because we don't want to encourage people to get into power. We want residential customers to, seeing money coming, because I think the solar companies will take tremendous advantage of that. But I do think it's fair. I won't say it's a bit unfair. We're just getting into this. But I think it would be fair to let them bank if they use them, or use less and let them bank it and then get credit on the usage the next month or however it works out. Makes more sense to me.
Other questions or comments?
What happens if we join ERCOT?
If you join ERCOT, well, it depends on if you opt in or not opt in. If you don't opt into competition, we still would decide ourselves how we handle net metering customers. If we opt into competition, obviously then customers would have a portfolio of different providers that they could choose from. And there are many options in the competitive marketplace on how all the companies handle net metering differently. And so you would have multiple choices at that point in time and all sorts of different pricing levels.
Other questions or comments?
It seems like this is such a new thing for utility boards all over the country. That it might be worth knowing a little more about what's working for some other people. We just seem to be in such a good place physically. And it seems like we just ought to be looking forward and not just doing whatever's already been. Not being the last to the dance. I think it could be a really cool thing for life.
What would be unfair, Jane, about the banking? What do you have any concern?
I just think, unless there's some prohibitively difficult thing about it rolling over. It's theirs. They put the thing up there, why not just let it roll? Unless it totally screws up.
I know too, some of the new home, I think you're going to see it more in new homes, because the solar companies, the soft water companies, they're all selling directly to Depot and on. And making that an option when someone buys a house. Oh, you want soft water? You want RO system? You want solar? You want a 200-foot turbine in your backyard? Oh, not can you?
The other thing is the price is just the price is dropped 90%. I mean, truthfully, and he would just think that it would be
It still has to be subsidized to make any sense of mine.
right. At this point, but they're getting better. There's just no question. I mean, it's way cheaper than it was if you tried to do this 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Those people who are your year-long customers paid a lot more than, you know. So I think it's coming, and there's no reason for us not to be part of that generation of folks, it seems like. So I don't know what kind of thing, I don't want to suggest that we do some, we've got enough going on, as you say. But I just think in the back of our heads, I'd rather see us be doing things that make people feel like we were helping them. I think giving them good information about how expensive it is and how long it takes to pay off is a wonderful way to do it. But I don't think we're not going to pay you, give you what you earn. Makes any sense. It just makes everybody mad at us. They're already mad at us. Let's do something that seems like getting into ERCOT is the perfect time to say, look what we're doing for you. You know, we're going to make this as easy as possible. We're going to make it as user-friendly as possible for you to get into this. But be careful because it's tricky and these are the problems. And I think having things on our website informs people is really good.
I think there might be some liability issues with us helping them get involved in giving the customer advice about, payback and that sort of thing. We probably just stay out of that.
Yeah, I was just going to reassure Ms. Henry, if you could just continue to encourage customers to contact the call center. We do a really good job giving the customers very neutral information about their consumption, specifically the tariff in general, and any of the questions involving the process and getting solar started. But they have to call. And a lot of the times what we're seeing is after the customers have signed the contracts, and then a couple months into it, then they call us upset because they're still getting a bill, and they were told that they weren't going to get a bill anymore, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So.
In
terms of banking, for a year, would that coincide with the year they asked for it, the 12 months they asked for it, would it coincide with our fiscal year? How, just because, closing the books and all that, how would you suggest if we want to do banking for 12 months, would you initially have a short time and then it would be with our fiscal year, or how would you envision that?
And I haven't gone that far in the analysis. I think that's something we probably look for the consultant to kind of assist us on. And I'd have to talk with the folks in the billing system what might work best there. I don't know if it's typically unique per customer or if it's set on a January to December.
It's typically fiscal year, so we can align with the books. The problem is if we're banking all of that, it doesn't necessarily line up with the solar customers' use if it's October. Yeah. So that wouldn't necessarily be beneficial for the customers if banking would be the option moving forward. So it's
Mr. Taylor?
I think she answered the question.
All right. That brings up item over. All right.
I think you asked if we had any direction, and I'm sensing that the board wants you to continue and maybe talk to Lou Jim about looking at these things a little more in detail.
Yes, I do need some direction if y'all want me to pursue.
My direction is wait until all the meters are rolled out, the smart meters and everything else, until we go further, because right now you're spinning wood, you're not going to be able to bank it or do anything. You can probably do this in the background, but once those have all been established, then you can actually see who's using what and what needs banked or not banked and everything else. But right now, you're out there trying to do that all manually. You know, got your hands full with everything else. So.
Is that the case? Is what man you said correct? I thought we could do it now.
Well, we would need to wait at least until the billing system is live, and then I don't know how long after it's live we'd need to implement something. So, you could study it at any point in time. I just want you to realize that we couldn't implement anything until at least probably third quarter of 2020 would be the soonest we could probably actually implement a new rate design. But certainly we can study it at any point in time if we want to start it now and we want to have things ready to go, or if we want to wait a little bit. We will.
You can't bring something back to us next month with the banking system and then
it would cause impacts to our current billing system, and we're trying to avoid moving our people off of the new, working on the new system to spend money and time and effort on the old system. And so we're trying to eliminate that type of activity and focus on the new system. So, and I don't know where we are in the scheme of things. Deborah, you might want to address where are we too late to get it into the go live version of the new billing system?
It is. It is too late because we've identified the requirements for the new billing system. We'll be going into testing very soon on the new billing system. And one of the benefits of using the new billing system instead of the current one is that the new billing system has that feature. It's something that is part of the new billing system, where the old billing system you have to do major modification.
Well, give our citizens some encouragement, I think, that the next month bring a resolution back just to say, we're studying, blah, 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 and the intent is to implement something once we're capable of doing it, with the new billing system, something, so it doesn't just get pushed off, into the background somewhere.
And I'm not certain I would be able to have the study back from NewGen by next month, but if it's just a directional resolution, I mean, I don't see a problem with that.
Just a directional thing, because I don't think our citizens understand that we've got to have this new building system to make this work. And I think they need to know that now. So if they're going to make a decision about solar, they need to understand, give us some time, before they do it. If I were going to put in solar and I knew there was any possibility to banking until the latter part of 2020, then I would probably wait a year before I put my solar in.
That was the ones that you have now, only two would be eligible for payment. Is that right?
Well, no, all of them would have. There's probably about 10 of those 23 that never would have been able to carry over. They didn't ever produce more than they generated, but there's probably a little over half that did. So there would be some. It may only be 1 or 2 months that they could carry over to that next month. Just so you know, just so you kind of have a size here, I looked at the customers that have been would carry over every month. And the financial gain that they would receive from that would be a little less than $2 a month difference in their bill. They get a little under $2 a month additional back from their solar production by allowing them to do the carryover. So it's not a significant number, the change from the current to a banking, but it is some. I mean, that's $25 a year basically that would make a difference, at least in that case where the customer is carrying over a lot. So,
And how much is the study?
5,000 to 10,000.
Direction intent thing next month, I think, would be helpful. That's just my one vote.
In the form of a resolution.
Yeah.
Mr. Gibb,
I think that it wouldn't need a resolution to study. That would be within David's authority. We could do that. If the board wanted to make a broader statement, then probably we ought to bring back a resolution. Was the statement, the broader statement would come before the results of the study. So we do.
Yeah, broad, something where there's been study, the building systems in progress, cost, and what our direction is.
We'll bring back a resolution for y'all to consider.
Any other questions or comments? Item 10, downtown.
Yeah, I think Jared Hughes is going to give an update. Well, Mr. Chairman, this is something that you requested an update when we last gave this report about 6 months ago, so we're giving an update.
All right, good afternoon. These first few slides may seem a little familiar from February, but we'll kind of touch on the high points of the project overall and then kind of dive down into the update portion of the presentation. The scope was to, and is, to utilize the City of Lubbock installed duct banks, reroute, install new underground feeders, switchgear, sub-feeders, and transformers in downtown Lubbock to upgrade infrastructure, improve system reliability, minimize overhead, and facilitate development within the 5 phases of downtown redevelopment. This includes the engineering, planning, materials, and construction work required to complete the project. Work within individual alleys for conversion to underground was added to the project scope in February of 2018 per direction of this utility board. The project scope does not include pole removal where other utilities are attached. So far since 2012, since the project's inception, we've spent approximately $2.6 million, and we currently have a little over $1 million budgeted for the upcoming fiscal year 1920. And those increasing expenses have resulted from the planned alley conversions. And kind of going over the development area again, this was kind of the boundaries set up by the City of Lubbock and the master developer back in 2013. Those boundaries have not changed, to my knowledge. Phase 1, you can kind of see it's roughly bordered by Avenue Q to the west and Avenue M to the east, 10th Street down to 19th. Phase 2, the yellow area, I'm sorry, wrong button. There it is. Phase 2, the yellow area, is the kind of long avenue, it's between Avenue N to Avenue J, 10th down to 15th Street. And then Phase 3, we've got Avenue J all the way back to basically I-27, Avenue E in that area, also from 10th Street down to 15th Street. This section here has actually been split in two. 3A and 3B. 3A is complete. The City of Lubbock put in that duct bank in for us a couple of years ago, and we currently have all our facilities in place. 3B was a planned duct bank to be installed along 9th Street, going down Avenue G and then Avenue F eventually. The city, as Downtown TID Board, actually elected to hold off on that project for now until to kind of maintain those funds in case any other projects were to spring up on the western more portions of the development area. And Phase 4 over here west of Avenue Q just kind of makes up half blocks along the frontage road there of 84 Avenue Q. And Phase 5 is basically just the Arts District, kind of northern parts of downtown that encompasses the Arts District and the Civic Center area. Okay, project updates on some projects going on downtown. As I mentioned, the Phase 3 underground feeder switchgear installation along Avenue J, which is part of Phase 3, that was completed early this year. Phases 1 and 2, those feeders down Avenue O and Avenue M were completed in 2014 and 2017, respectively. The Pioneer Building, Metro Tower, sub-feeder installation, that has also been completed. Both of those buildings are now being served from underground loop sub-feeders. Citizens Tower, of course, we all know about that. That sub-feeder installation is complete, and we're waiting on transformer installation there just west of the tower, working with the general contractor schedule there. And the Cotton Court Hotel, the original target block actually at Broadway and Avenue O is progressing very quickly. You probably all drive by daily and see that going up. We also have our new underground service and our transformer there already installed in place and serving the construction power currently. Western Bank, the new underground service there is also complete, and the remainder of that block is planned for conversion in 2020. Of course, after City Hall moves over to Citizens Tower, as we have our current electrical feeds coming through that alley that serves existing City Hall. And so we'll look at that once the transition to Citizens Tower is made, and that'll, of course, rework the feed without disruption to City of Lubbock operations. Services at 10, 11, 13th Street, which is that block just south of the Green Building, formerly Rager Dykes. That's all been converted, well, a portion of that, I should say, has been converted to underground. And recently, within the last month or two, crews have removed overhead electric facilities in the alley north of the Pioneer Building and Metro Tower. I'll have some pictures on that here in a couple slides ahead. And the Brahuddy Hawley Performing Arts Center new underground service and that transformer, they have been installed. And the former SPS XL Energy 4 kV overhead distribution overhead, that's all been completely removed from downtown. It has been for a couple of years now. And actually, this weekend we have the last remaining downtown network 15 kV aerial cable that'll be coming down this Sunday on August 25th. Here are the pictures I was kind of hinting to. This is a good example of what I call overhead minimization looks like. We remove as many facilities as we possibly can from our area. This is over here just east of the Pioneer, obviously looking at from the alley view. Oops, wrong button again. Here you can see the old H-frame structure that was put in the 40s and 50s. And then here you see, obviously there's still overhead facilities present, but they are primarily the telecommunication providers, and you see it has cleaned up the view there somewhat. Another example here, looking east towards Metro Tower, you kind of see another H-frame structure here. There actually used to be an old rack-mounted transformer here before this picture was taken even. All that's been removed, and then here you can see it's still facilities present, but not LP&L facilities, and obviously a major improvement. Another example here, this is right north of Metro Tower looking eastward towards the Pioneer Building. And so we discussed a little bit back in February this 32 block conversion plan. The objective here is to upgrade and improve LP&L's electric distribution infrastructure downtown and accommodate development, utilizing capital improvement project funding approved by the Electric Utility Board, and to install new underground facilities and remove LP&L overhead facilities on 32 selected blocks within Lubbock's Central Business District. The scope here includes easement acquisition, design, installation of conduit, the cable, transformers, vaults, pull boxes, switchgear necessary to allow existing electrical services within the selected blocks to be converted underground. The blocks shown in the attached exhibit drawing represent target blocks for LP&L Phase 1 and Phase 2, and also includes minimization and removal of our overhead facilities. Here's kind of a overview of the project here. Basically, the green blocks here are what we were looking at attacking this year. The blue blocks, we're looking at converting those blocks next year in 2020. And then the yellow blocks were more the kind of waiting to see what would happen development-wise, and also there's very minimal existing LP&L overhead facility on these blocks to begin with. I know we have Record Docs Green Building here. Obviously, we want to kind of tap the brakes on putting any underground facilities there just for the moment. We have Metro Tower, Pioneer right here, and we've actually removed all of our overhead facilities on that block now already anyway. And then we have the block directly west of Metro Tower and north of this building. We've heard of plans of that being a target block. No confirmation of that. And then we have the block here that was where the old XL substation, city sub actually, which has been completely wrecked out and abandoned. I believe the city's actually looking at selling this property at some point to a bidder. So that kind of lays that out. Any questions?
Which one of those is Lubbock Power and Light?
We are right here.
Okay.
Right. And we have no overhead on this block, so. Okay, exclusions. The geographic limits of this 2-year plan is loosely bordered by Mac Davis Lane to the north, Texas Avenue to the east, 15th Street to the south, and Avenue Q to the west. Does not include any blocks already void of LP&L overhead facilities, and does not include areas south of 15th Street that were not included in the City of Lubbock's development phases. Does not include areas east of Texas Avenue that are part of the City of Lubbock's Phase 3B conduit installation plan. I kind of touched on that earlier. And there are no plans at this time for the city to initiate construction on this phase that I'm aware of. It does not include pole removal where existing telecommunication facilities are present. LP&L vacated poles with remaining attachments shall be cut off or topped, as we call it, above the contacting facility to minimize the visual impact. and just kind of a list of some unique challenges and conflicts that we're running into with this project. Number one, we're finding out very quickly is easement acquisition. Installing large above-ground equipment in public right-of-way and streets and alleys is not a viable option. Easements for equipment such as transformers, switching cabinets, they have to be granted by multiple downtown property owners prior to beginning construction. And if we don't get cooperation on this, well, then we have to do design changes, and there are delays to construction, obviously. We have existing 122/43 phase services, and they require specially ordered 122/43 phase pad mount transformers that we have never traditionally stocked. This is to avoid having to persuade property owners to hire and pay for electricians to convert services to a modern 122/08 three-phase service, and the process of doing that potentially triggering costly upgrades and bring services up to code, and it just kind of dovetails out from there typically. Another challenge, forecasting development. We're trying to strategically select blocks for underground conversion to accommodate the goals of downtown electric utility relocation, while avoiding the waste of resources to convert alleys that could be closed and cleared for new development on super blocks. And then lastly, excavation downtown. It's very tight alleyways. There are numerous buried utilities that are very old and brittle, sometimes unmarked. And then the majority of downtown has extensive layers of rock and caliche, being so close to the cap rock that makes excavation very slow and tough on equipment. Okay, so update on our phase one for the first 16 blocks. So SGS Engineering's professional services were being utilized under a task authorization for LP&L to convert 16 blocks. Design on that is 95% complete. We're just waiting to finalize our easements. SGS contracted a local survey company to acquire legal descriptions and stake property pins for required transformer pad and switching enclosure easements. And working with the city, that they've contracted an easement acquisition consultant to contact property owners and execute these 10 easements. As of August 1st, 4 of the 10 have been executed, 4 have been denied outright, and 2 are pending final approval, meaning we think we're going to get them, we just haven't got them signed off on just yet. And the letters were originally sent out to property owners back in April of this year. Upon final determination of all these requested easements, design will be finalized so an RFP can be released to find a qualified contractor to provide and install conduit, cable, and equipment. Easement acquisition is a critical path for this project and has already delayed this project schedule significantly. We've basically been sitting on the design for about 3 months now, waiting to get these easements. So, any questions on that? All right, the pole inventory regarding LP&L attachments. In May 2019, LP&L staff performed field data collection and analysis of existing poles within the 48 selected blocks in the downtown core. 458 total poles were counted. Of those 458 poles, we had facilities attached to 76%, so about 3/4. LP&L shares pole use with at least one foreign entity on 62% of these poles. And poles where only LP&L occupies with no other foreign attachment make up 14%. So very few do we only does LP&L attach to. And the poles void of any LP&L facilities make up about 24% of those inventory. Now, regarding the foreign attachments, a total of 7 foreign entities, non-LP&L, were identified in this inventory. AT&T is attached to 253 poles, that is 55%. NTS Communications is attached to 232 poles, 51%. Suddenlink is attached to 224 poles, 49%. So those are obviously your 3 main communication players there in the downtown area. The City of Lubbock actually has facilities attached to 95 poles, which is about 21%. That is typically communications fiber between facilities and traffic.
Is there a percentage of those poles that are owned by the telecommunications companies?
Yes, I don't know what that percentage is, though, to be quite honest with you. Typically, AT&T is about the only communication provider that owns their own poles. And we don't have a really accurate count with our system right now on who actually owns what. But the majority, I can tell you this, the vast majority, will be owned by LP&L.
Would those poles be in this count?
Yes, sir. We didn't, when the inventory was taken, they didn't discriminate on who was owning what pole. It was just, these are the poles in the area, these are who are attached to them. Period, end of story. And so a few of the smaller players here, Poca-Lambro, they were attached to 20 poles, about 4%. Plateau Wireless, they're attached to 14 poles, that's 3%. Atmos is actually attached to 3 poles, which is less than 1%. And we had 12 poles that the guys out in the field just could not identify. That's about 2%. Any questions?
I think that changes the whole, what we spoke about earlier, stuff like that is AT&T and NTS and those, you break it down individually, they're pulling the lines and pulling that stuff is a lot different. There's 253, it's not, they're all the way strong all throughout downtown. If you break it down like that, I think that's a lot more positive looking at, if you know where they're at, things like that, and whether it's all plan or what it may be, that's a lot more impressive than just saying, in my mind, instead of thinking all downtown, that's under figure, and it may be someone like that, but only 55% of them, 53% of them, so I mean, that's a lot more positive than what I thought. Jason, thank you, sir. All right, before we get to the consent, we'll look at the last month, September, October, and then November over there. Just sticking with the same board dates for both those meetings, correct?
The biggest thing board dates, they haven't given us access yet to the calendar, the meeting rooms over there, so I haven't found our room, but we are expecting to have November board meeting over there. Say, third Tuesday going forward, just gotta find our room and I'll notify you.
Okay, so we spoke about last month, it'll be at Citizens Tower. All right, consent agenda, we've got items 11 through 18. So I'll entertain a motion to, got a motion? Second. Got a motion by Gwen and second by Kevin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes.